I started off coaching, back in those days we had to do an apprenticeship. You never came straight in as A grade or, A reserve, C grade coach. You started off, and I had the 15s. Went through then for a couple of years, and 3 years later, we won our first premiership with all local kids in the first division under 18s. It was the first time the Hills had won that competition, and it sort of gave us a real good platform as far as deciding the way ahead into A grade. From there, I was appointed coach of Parramatta Jersey Flegg for 2 years, came back here in 88, and in 89 I applied for A grade. Now at that time, we were on the cusp of way of the club. The kids we had coming through junior reps through what was then the President's Cup, Flegg, Ball and Matthews, was outstanding. In the first year of our A grade, we had blokes like Peter Heath, Mark Townsend, Andrew McCaffrey, Mark Donkin, Russell Mooney. They'd all played junior reps coming through in that mid to late 80s. A bloke called Cameron McGuinness, who won the best junior in Parramatta. So we were really blessed that we had that solid foundation. Having said that, in 89, the A grade in Parramatta was starting to fall to pieces. It was 5 or 6 in A grade first division, and the rest were playing second division, pub comp, because the first division there was too much money around. At the end of that year, Ray Warren led a push with Barry Rudd, to be fair, our Barry Rudd, to establish an elite competition across Sydney, not just for the Parramatta teams, but across Sydney, so that good A-grade teams, good districts could aspire to that level. They called it the Metropolitan Cup. Now, the Metro Cup had died, but in the 60s, the Metro Cup was the entrance for Penrith and Cronulla to go into what was now the NRL. So it was a prestige comp and it was well regarded. In 89, we made the grand final in A grade, the old A grade, and we were pretty confident. We got beat 14-8 by Wentworthville, but that's when the whole thing started to crash. Metro Cup was formed in 1990. In Hills District, there was a real divided yes-no group between should we go to Metropolitan Cup or should we stick with A grade. I was very vocal and I had some good supporters to say, if this club's going to go ahead, we cannot give our kids an aspiration that they'll play second division pub competition. And that's what it was, and I'm not being rude, but that's what it actually was. You go to games, there'd be grog everywhere, the players would be bloody overweight, not on. After a lot of pushing, and it was pushing, the committee agreed, and we were the last team admitted to Metropolitan Cup in 1990. Now that 1990 team, first year in, was really basically Hills juniors that had come through, with a couple of exceptions. We were lucky enough to get a couple of people from Parramatta Maris, people like Mark Donkin, who's a legend in our club, Russell Mooney, Mark Boland, and a young bloke who I was so impressed with, he came to us, Shane Ferguson, as a 19-year-old C grader. We complemented that with only a couple of outsiders, a bloke called Billy Gard from South Sydney, front row forward, big man, and Brucey Martin, the front row forward from Penrith. The rest around that team were locals, and that's what made it so exciting. Now, in preparing for the Metro Cup in 1990, we had a very simple approach. We were the underdogs. The papers, the big league, ran a weekly program, and it said that Hills District, while it's commendable they've joined the comp, they really are there to make up the numbers, and it will be a situation where good luck, but they'll develop. Now, from a coaching viewpoint, that made my job easy, because when we'd get ready, it didn't matter who we were playing, we were the underdogs. It didn't matter. There wasn't a team in that comp, and you go through the Right Eastwoods, who were undefeated 4 years, Wentworthville, Guildford, Mount Pritchard, Bankstown came into the comp, coached by Western Suburbs player, and Western Suburbs itself. So from our perspective, there was only one way to go, and that was up. Wentworthville Leagues Club at that time had a journal, and in it they had the write-up for the year, and even though we'd played them in the grand final the year before and only got beat by 6, 14-8, they said Hills District will not win a game. Well, that was the sort of attitude. But the team clicked, and because we had that mixture of a couple from the outside, but mainly young kids coming through, it set a really good platform. The last competition game of the year we played Right Eastwood at Wentworthville, and I went through my notes, but Right Eastwood hadn't lost for 4 seasons, and they'd gone through that season undefeated too, 1990, and we beat them 16-10 at Ringrose. 2 weeks later, we played them in the major semi at Leichhardt Oval. 2 years before, I'd taped a move where Australia played New Zealand, and I called it Langer. And it was basically a move involving multiple players with switches and all the rest, but Langer and Wayne Pearce were the key players. We practiced it, and on the major semi-final day at Right Eastwood, we pulled it off. And Paul Mulherron scored under the goalpost. He never had a hand on him, it just went straight through the breach that we'd created.
15 out from the right Eastwood line. As Guard takes it up, Donkin, Ferguson, Mulherron! Mulherron's under the black dot! Mulherron scores for Hills District.
So into the grand final, but the fairy tales ended, and we just weren't good enough on the day. Right Eastwood really were a good team. They had 4 internationals, although we'd beat them twice. Just on grand final day, they were just too smart for us. And maybe their coach was too smart for me too. But 19-6, however, that was the foundation. When Hills District won the Ron Massey, to me, even though it's taken many years, it's sort of a justification for all we started years ago to give our club and our players and our supporters the opportunity to play at the highest level we could.
How many players you can list? So many players you can list from this performance.
Thank you, this is well done. So thank you very much.
Yeah, in 2013, the club celebrated its 50th anniversary, and I was very, very proud to be asked to join the committee that managed and coordinated the whole of that event, including the preparation of the book, the research into where and how the club got to where they were at, and then the organising of the actual function at Rosehill Racecourt, which was a fantastic night and never to be forgotten from all who attended. That was a really great project. We developed a questionnaire as sort of a tip sheet that we sent out to so many people and invited people to contact us if we'd missed anybody, to give us their thoughts on their involvement in the club from 63 through. So we had all different eras of dads, sons, even grandsons that had been part of the club during that 50-year period. I suppose when you do history too, we learn, and I remember looking back to how the club actually started, with a few teams. They were lucky to even be accepted, to have the minimum number of teams in there. And to be fair, of course, Mick Ramo Senior was sort of instrumental in getting the club off the ground. But in doing that research, it just sort of, I don't know, it confirmed to me just how really, really proud this club is and what a tradition they've got to get to where they've got. And you can't underrate the club, where they are today and where they've come from, without a licensed leagues club, without any guaranteed revenue flow, despite what happens in the world as far as poker machines, entertainment, whatever. I think it speaks volumes. And I think that's reflected in the book. I remember when we put it together, you're so proud as you pace the eras through, and you get your photographs and you get your reminiscences from people. I remember one of the key things here, we asked people what's your great recollection of Hills District? And they wrote from their heart, people like Bob Moses, ex-South Sydney, outstanding footballer, came in and coached A grade, and just for him to say what he thought about Hills District Club, it just meant so much. I suppose if you look back to 63 when they met, I think they met at the School of Arts or something on Windsor Road, Balcombe Hills, they would never have imagined that 50 years later the club would be where it is, and now here we're talking 60 years later. I know we joked at the 50-year anniversary, like when will the next one be? But if you look at that period between 2013 and 2023, the advances the club's made on and off the field, in the administration, in their operation, in their achievements on the field, the first time, the Metropolitan Cup, which equivalent Ron Massey, fantastic performance. And again, amplifying. If you go back through the results, you look in those clubs that have won those cups over the years, Metro, Ron Massey, whatever, they've all got huge financial support. They've all been well-funded and well-financed right across the board. Hills District do it because they want to do it. I've got to be careful because you sort of, we've been here that long. It's sort of, you get a bit not personal, but you're thinking about, geez, I'm proud of everything. And I am, because, geez, there were some hard days, really some hard days as far as, like talking about after I finished playing, and then going through, there were splits that we had to manage. And if you remember, we dropped out of the Metropolitan Cup, and there were issues there about it's too much money, can't afford it. And then, and again, to be too personal, then we had a clique come along that they wanted to go back to A grade. And that was it. The be-all, end-all was going to be A grade. And the be-all, end-all was never going to be A grade if we were going to really be a club that the kids wanted to play for. So that was a difficult period, very stressful. It's two sides to every story, and that's true. And I remember at the time, even back in 89, 90, we had to convince people that we weren't milking the revenue flow to A grade and later the Metropolitan Cup. We had to convince them that we were doing our bit, and even things like, and I used to encourage Metro Cup and A grade players to come along and help coach juniors. Come along, don't take over. Say to the coach, do you want me to run a tackling drill? Do you want me to run an attack 10 metres out and we'll go through a 6 tackle set? So I wanted them to, and I think it was always important to make sure we were a club. At one stage years ago, there were bloody two committees, senior committee and a junior committee. Now, could you imagine the drama there? But the message, going back to your question, my message always was, and I really sincerely believed it, is we are a club, we are one. We are one from under 6 second division to Metropolitan Cup Ron Massey. We're one, and we want that escalation, we want that upward and downward interaction so that people didn't feel the Metro Cup was somebody different. And even here, you know, I used to stress when I was on the committee, don't come along to training and say to the under sixes or under 12s, come on fellas, get off. You know, it's time for us to get on. Remember, they're working to get to where you are. So give them a bloody go. Just be understanding. That's been around ever since day one. And I think, and again, it's a lot of its personalities too. You know, you've got to convince people, and I suppose being honest too, that they can see that how we're running it now with the A grade Metropolitan Cup. And I know here now the crowds generated through the canteen sales, whatever. And again, I don't know how much accurate costing is done on our budget. If push come to shove, you know, like to indicate just that how much the club is generating, but not just for them, because it's all the club. It's not just Ron Massey A grade Metropolitan Cup, it's the club. So that's how much revenue is coming in. Depends on personnel. Look, you know, and again, you could go back over names where it really can become personal, where you get 2 or 3 strong-willed people in the junior ranks that can start some sort of little discussion, and then don't let the truth interfere with a good story. Did you hear that Mick Gremo's just signed John Smith, and not sure whether the budget will cover that, so they'll probably have to take some from canteen, touch football and tag. Bullshit. I honestly believe that's the foundation and that's the core of building a club, any club. I really, really mean that. I don't care whether we're talking NRL, Metropolitan Cup, Hills District, whatever. I think the club has got to understand that all the way through, the players can aspire to reach their highest level. And all the way through, we'll give them the appropriate coaches, the appropriate development, and we'll recognise that all kids aren't going to go to Metropolitan Cup A-grade First Division, but we'll get them to the best of their possible ability in whatever level they aspire to and they plateau at. I think it's just poison and the end of a club if they focus solely on one part of the club. The kids have got to know. And mum and dad moved to the district, and I know even back in those days, Hills District were a pathway to Metro Cup. And Hills District, just little things, big league, rugby league week, every week there were the teams were announced, Hills District, first grade, second grade, and a story. Now, Johnny moves to the district, his dad knows that, and his dad's played a bit of football before, he knows his kid, at the very minimum, will be one level below NRL. Where's he going to play? The answer is here, because they can see that. They can see in black and white there is a goal they can strive to. The role that the Hills plays in giving an opportunity for kids to, I hate to say it, but get off the street and do something worthwhile. Knowing, and I think this is another good thing that you guys have done, and I notice when you call for expressions of interest from coaches, you know, I back in my day, we interviewed every coach, and I interviewed him if I was interviewing for Jersey Flag or Ball. We had our set questions, and we really wanted to see them aspire to be something, and not just to come in because their mate at the club was half pissed and said, the coach last year couldn't coach, so you could do it, Cookie. So you go and apply, you'll get it. No, thank you. So I noticed this year, you got EOIs out for people to apply for coach. And I know I've talked to you before about that. The selection is such that you really are looking to get a coach and not someone who just wants to fill in a bit of time and tell his mates at the pub that he's a football coach. You know, you look at where the club is today. We've got all these competitions going. In my little story I wrote, I said, like, I see kids here now, I coach their grandfather. Are you kidding? I mean, it's just how the evolution of our club, girls playing, boys playing that could probably never want to play league, but happy to play tag, happy to play, you know, flag, all the rest of it. So, you know, and I know we call it now the Hills District Sport Club, so it recognises it's right across the board. So the role in the community, that can't be underestimated either.